advise the leaders who oversee our ramp group, which is really cool, and it's kind of jumping off. Some pictures are up there of different events. But yeah, thought we would make sure you all were aware of this group and all the awesome things that are going on so that we can all kind of praise God and celebrate that and just, know how he's working in and through a lot of our teens. So RAMP is relational and missional people, and the leaders are Zoe, Landon, and Jeremy. I don't see Jeremy here, but yeah, so they are doing a rock star job at just following Christ in their walks and leading this. They've planned some amazing events throughout this past year, and it's been super fun for sure for the high school teens, but also the time is just, I'm blown away by the intentional time. The intentional time that these guys are putting in for, just following this mission for Christ is just amazing. And so some, like that circle time right there, that's actually Landon sharing his gospel story to the group. Several of the other leaders and other folks have shared their gospel stories. We've had some amazing time together. So I kind of wanted to, this is something that is going on. It's alive. It's rocking in our body for Christ. And if you haven't heard much about this, please plug in, check in with one of our high school teens, see how, impactful that's been for them, or even one of the leaders that I mentioned, because there's so many different things going on. I see it's kind of stuck on that one, but there's been so many other things that we've done. Also, there is that glow-in-the-dark South Williamsport Community Park, September 30th, 6 p.m. They have an awesome event planned, so that should be real super fun. Some Frisbee, ultimate Frisbee. But yes, I appreciate everyone that's hosted them at their homes, different things like that. It's been, we've received we've received a lot of support for this, and pray that we can continue to see more. But yeah, it's been kind of cool too. They've been doing these ramp ride outs, different things like that they've done, where they go and encourage one another in where they're at, different events like concerts or sporting events, things like that. But I guess the biggest thing I want to speak on is the gospel is being presented to non-believers. These guys are inviting. I've met people that I've never met at these different gatherings, and these guys are doing the mission. They are presenting the gospel to non-believers, and that's been the most exciting part of this. And I'm thankful that they've allowed me to be involved with that. And so I don't want to share too much about that. They can share with you personally about that if you would like to ask them, but they have some stories of non-believers and the gospel's being shared. So that's been super awesome and exciting. To any of you Rampsters that have, teens that have been attending, you guys are rock stars too. You're bringing your friends. Please invite friends to this. I know you're all back in school and whatnot. Please invite friends to this. I'm sure there's going to be some intentional time planned. And yeah, what better way to have a blast and then talk about Christ. So and you guys have been so awesome and respectful, and we appreciate that. So if you're a parent of one of those teens, they're amazing. For any of you that aren't quite in the high school realms, youngsters, middle schoolers, whatnot, coming up, we got our eyes kind of set on you. We've done some processing and talking. So I encourage you to talk to one of those high school folks as well, because, yeah, we don't see this going away. This is we're hoping and praying that this stays around and it's going well. So, and God seems to be just, our groups are, folks are coming out. So yeah, it's exciting, and I think God's gonna keep using it. So yeah, let me pray. Keep supporting, encouraging them. Let us know if you have any other thoughts or ideas. I'll pray, and we'll let this get to the teaching. God, thank you for blessing these young people in our body, in our lives. We appreciate them so much, and appreciate the love that they have for you, how they're just pouring it out. Like it's been an amazing witness for us. And so, Lord, I thank you for how you are working through them and impacting the world and the non-believers especially, and just encouraging all of us. And I pray that, we continue to grow them and encourage them and support them in having these avenues like Ramp to just be them, be their age, be their season of life, and love well as you would have them. So, Lord, I just thank you so much for this time.
Yeah, I'm on. So just to piggyback on that just for a moment, for those of you who are maybe you're new hearing about it or whatever, we would really ask you to be praying about this. Tim's not just making stuff up so the announcement sounds good. There's really neat stuff happening with not just the gospel being like loosely shared at like a one-off conversation, but like lengthy, repeated, taking people through the Bible to help them understand the message of the gospel. This is happening at this level. And man, we're super encouraged in that. It's actually prompted us to think and begin planning about more ways to build in much more intentionally into the future generation of the church. So we couldn't be more excited for it. And we would really ask that you pray about it. And those of you older people, hey, think about ways you can help and encourage. And the whole opening up your homes has been really cool. That's so neat to see, see that happening. So think about that. That might be something you could do. Open up your own home and just say, hey, come on over and use it. Use our property to do what whatever you want to do. And it could be helping out. It could be providing a snack here or there. If you want to help and be a part, man, talk to those team of leaders. Catch Tim at some point. We want you to be able to help and be a part of it in some other ways too. So please, at bare minimum, be praying about the young folks in our church. And I like what you said there, Tim, about not just the ones who are in it now, but the ones that are coming. Is we really want to be not only thinking about the present need, but like how does this thing carry on from generation to generation to generation? And that's very kind of hot and exciting for us right now, and it's prompting a lot more that we need to think about as a church and as leaders about this. So we're excited. Please be praying for it, and hey, dive in a way that is helpful for them. Just even to offer yourself like, hey, I could help in something if you need help. Let me know. I don't mind providing a snack, or maybe our house could be used or whatever. Just let them know. And they'll maybe do glow-in-the-dark Frisbee in your backyard or something like that. Can't imagine. I mean, I was going to go, but whoops, I won't be here. Can you imagine? I'm just thinking at my age trying to play glow-in-the-dark ultimate Frisbee. I see it in daylight, and I'm like, yeah, pass. But we're going to do it glow-in-the-dark. Just sounds like a broken hip or something like that, but hey, whatever. I guess they can withstand that. So yeah, just be thinking about it and praying about it, this thing that's going on. It's very exciting how it happened, how it came about, and how it's going. Let's get into Mark. Let's get into Mark chapter 8. I'm going to take us through these verses, sort of a little pieced. Some of this first section, I'm counting on the fact that you read it. I'm not going to go through every single verse of it, just for the sake of kind of getting to the point where we're at. But then we're going to go through some of the other sections a little more in depth. But we're still in this point in the Gospel of Mark where the transition is taking place. So we should have kind of like a mental waypoint in our mind here that the gospel, meaning this gospel or this story, has shifted in its focus. It's not just on Christ coming on the scene and doing things to demonstrate who he is and his authority and things like that. He's beginning to pull his disciples in. He's beginning to do things in a little bit of a different way so that he starts the handoff. So there's so much to learn here on so many levels. We do not have the time to do justice to the gospel in this sense. But Jesus is demonstrating what it takes and the wisdom of how to turn over gospel ministry to people. He starts very heavy in his own demonstration of what it looks like. And now you see, after quite a long time of building the relational capital with them and building his testimony before them, he's starting to hand off. But he doesn't just throw it all at them and go, here, it's everything. Do it all. I'm leaving. He's there with them, but he's starting to pull them in a little bit more. And so that's where we're kind of at here. He's making a turn. You're going to see this morning that he shifts geographically where he's at. He's starting to go outside of the boundaries of where he was primarily at. And he's going to start aiming south and heading towards Jerusalem here very soon. But notice the shift in his interactions, particularly with his disciples. So we jump in this first part, and some of you would have read this. I just got a few statements in here about this story. He's feeding a bunch of people again. He's feeding a bunch of people again in the same way he just did it. I don't know if some of you read it and were like, what, did Mark just like repeat on accident here? Did he cut and paste? Did they cut and paste back then on like a papyrus? No, he didn't cut and paste. The same event happened, but it's the same type of event happened. But there's a little bit of a shift in what he's trying to do here. But we've got some things that he says, and how he brings his disciples into this. And you can see just some of these phrases in this first part of those first 20 verses, how he brings them a little more in than he did in the previous time. And for example, in the second one there, he gave them to his disciples to set before the people, and they set them before the crowd. He's very much, they are the ones kind of out in front engaging in the crowd and the provision of this miracle. In a sense, Jesus is kind of stepping back just a bit. I think everyone knows where it's coming from, but he particularly and specifically really gives to them, again, you take this out, you distribute this. And you might be wondering, again, have we read this already? Well, we haven't. This is new. So the question becomes here, why does he do this again? Why does he do the same type of thing again? What sets this one apart and what makes it different? Well, it's a little different as you read on into there in verse 11. Is this specific interaction with the Pharisees while with and in the presence of his disciples in this interaction? He's trying to do something, and he does it so well, how he addresses both groups at the very same time. But it appears as though he's speaking to one. But just watch what he does. He says to the Pharisees who come up to him, and they begin to argue with him. Oddly enough, let's just remember what he just did. Okay, what did he just do? Something that's like ridiculous. No one could ever do this. Clearly miraculous. This is round 2 of the miraculous, of this magnitude that is before all the people and seeing it. And it's right here in this story where the Pharisees come up and begin to argue with him, again, to the root of the issue of who he's declaring himself to be, or at least we can say at this point, demonstrating himself to be. They begin to argue and seek a sign from heaven to test him. Prove yourself. And here's one of these phrases where if you can get back from just the analysis of the grammar, just look at the words, and he sighed deeply in his spirit. Like, just take a moment to just kind of just get into that. He writes that way so that you can get the tone, what Jesus is feeling in this. Like, okay, I just did this for the second time. They're still gnawing on fish. They're still breaking their little Panera baguettes. Those are good, aren't they? Have any of, never mind. Isn't one not enough? Every time I always say something about the bread to the person that sticks it up, and I'm like, maybe they'll just throw one more. They never do. But there is someone from our midst who works there. Eve, just put 2 on when we're there. Just 2 baguettes. So they're gnawing on their second baguette still, and they're saying, give us a sign to prove. So think about the irony, right? Now, can you see why he sighs deeply? There's a very deep sigh in that. Like, you're holding the baguettes. You're eating the fish. What? There's a deep sigh in his spirit. Lock that into your mind, because there's a repeat of that deep sigh from about here on out as he moves his way to Jerusalem. He has a really big one outside of Jerusalem before he heads in for the Passover, as he faces the rejection from the people. So don't think like the pictures that we used to see, the little picture of Jesus just floating along in the white tunic and the blue sash, and he's just smiling and there's the beaming glow behind him all the time. I don't think that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a real life Jesus facing the reality of tangible rejection in the very midst of him demonstrating who he clearly is. So there's an emotional thing there. Why does this generation seek a sign? Truly I say to you, no sign will be given to this generation. That's tough. Now, specifically in the language, it's a little lost in translation, this whole "this generation" thing. Because you're wondering, is he literally talking about like how we would think the word literally, like the entire generation will not see a sign? Well, just go a little bit further, and there's more signs that come after this. But he's really talking specifically to these guys, the Pharisees. Okay, like, you're asking for it. You can't see the obvious thing that's right here before your eyes, and you're going to test me for more. Why do you keep asking for more when you won't acknowledge what's right here before you? Time's up. I'm not going to give you what you want. But he's not, and I catch this, he's not saying you've never seen a sign. They're in the midst of a sign at this point, and they're not willing to accept it. Truly, yeah, this is a sad time for him. No sign will be given. So here's the deal. It seems like Jesus is really trying to accomplish 2 things here specifically, okay? The first one is sort of obvious because of verse 11 and the Pharisees. He's trying to confront their unbelief. He's not offering something that's particularly hard in that present moment to believe. They're seeing him do it, and yet they choose to not believe, okay? So clearly he's confronting their unbelief. And what he's saying is that he's limiting the scope of his supernatural work so as not to provide an opportunity for them to actually be deceived as to what people do with Jesus. So what he's doing with the Pharisees, he's demonstrating this. Like, listen, the way that you believe is not me come in and just do everything you want to the measure that you feel good about it, and then you'll believe. I come and demonstrate who I am, and you choose whether to believe in that or not. But I'm not your puppet to do what you want to where you feel good enough that you can believe. That's not how this works to the Pharisees. Because he has demonstrated something to them. Now catch this, he's not saying, I don't demonstrate something of who I am. He has. But it doesn't work this way. Faith is not, I will believe when you do enough to make me feel like I want to believe. Faith is, he demonstrates who he is, and we either choose to believe it or not. So he's kind of demonstrating here with them. And he's also showing, there's another important side note Just put this in the back of your hat. Miracles are only good to the measure that they encourage faith. Oftentimes, they actually don't. Jesus says, nope. Just people seeing miracles isn't actually going to make them believe. Now, you would think that, right? Most of us would sit here and think, if Jesus would just do something miraculous like pay off my mortgage, I swear I will follow him faithfully for the rest of my life, right? I mean, could you honestly think that? Like, imagine if, like, you just poof, like, you go to the bank, like, yeah, you don't owe anything. What? Yeah, some Jesus dude, weird tunic, but signed it off. Done. You'd be like, I am his man. Like, I will follow him forever. And Jesus knows the reality of our hearts and our actual condition, not what we think we cook up about ourselves. He knows the truth, that actually wouldn't end up changing that much. And it actually, in this weird sort of way, can foster a lack of faith. It can push us the other direction. That one's kind of obvious. Second one is this. Believe it or not, he's actually confronting the unbelief of the disciples at the very same time. The very same time. Same event. Same situation. Same situation. Okay, check it out. Look where he goes. He goes on to say this. I'm putting these in two different colors because I want you to see in white what the disciples are thinking and saying, and in yellow, what Jesus is saying. Now check this out. It's hilarious in a real sad kind of way. And they had only one loaf with them in the boat. And he cautioned them, saying, watch out, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. Jesus taking something about their real life situation and using to try to teach them about a very important spiritual truth. He said that. Here's how their response. And they began discussing with one another the fact that they had no bread. And Jesus, 17, comes back and, aware of this, says to them, why are you discussing the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not, here's the word, remember? Do you not yet understand? You ever have conversations with someone and you're like, we are not conversing right now. Have you ever had those? Like, I'm saying something, but your reply shows, A, you did not hear anything I just said. Or B, you had a very different idea of where this conversation was supposed to go. Have you ever had those? Well, everyone who's married, please shake your head, because you've had these, right? You've had these. And you've been the one who your wife's talking at you, and you're like, you know how to do the external sign. And in here, you're like, you're somewhere else. You're somewhere else. And then you replied, and she looks back at you like, you weren't listening. And then you do the oh crap face, like, oh, that's true. I wasn't listening. I thought I could pick out enough words and formulate a helpful response that would keep me in the conversation just enough to not be dead meat. But I'm dead meat now, right? Have we had that? You've had that. Happens all the time. It's always triggered by that phrase, are you listening to what I'm saying? That usually means they already know you're not, right? Here's the crazy thing. That little microcosm picture, example, is what happens so often in our spiritual lives. Second time, he took a little and made it a lot and provided what they needed. They're in the boat. They're all you can just see Peter, God love him. Man, what a guy. But you know he's there going, 12 of us, one baguette. This is clearly not enough. We eat like animals. We're starving. You know, like he's way on like I'm hungry mode. And Jesus is like, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to use this bread as an illustration because there's a really deeper spiritual thing you guys need to know that I really want to sort of warn you about and teach you about. They're like, and they're thinking, one loaf. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to eat? And do you see the deep sigh in the heart of Jesus here? He's like, wait a minute. You guys have seen me do this twice. You're really concerned about the one loaf. That's where you're caught up. I want to teach you something way deeper and way more, and you're caught up with the thing I've already demonstrated. I've got it. I've got it. Wow. They could not get their eyes off their stomachs and onto him, the one who had proven twice to be able to meet their most basic need. Man, there is a lesson here. There is a lesson here. Let's go on and see if we can build more into it. All right? So let's just check out where we're at so far, just in this little section. We got this whole interaction. It's taking place over here in the Decapolis again. We've kind of shifted away. We're still in the Galilee, but we're over back to, remember what happened last time we were here? Anyone remember the last story in the Decapolis? What happened? I heard. It was the pig story. You're right. You're exactly right. And remember, this is a highly Greek-influenced area. This would be more the uttermost. This is the non-Jewish Israel area where he had first went and healed, and he went away. Remember we said he's going to come back? But he left the mission up to the one crazy dude who was running around ripping chains off himself, and he was freed from the demon, and I believe somewhere in there, he's out there doing whatever Jesus told him to do, to whatever measure he knew how, of telling people of the mercy of God in his life. Here Jesus comes back there. Okay, that's where we're at. We're in this latter part of the ministry. And what's the lesson he wants to teach these disciples? If the handoff is beginning, what is the most central thing that must be built up into these disciples to begin to take the handoff and run? What is the proper, like when I played football, we did this drill forever, like how to put your arms to receive the ball properly. If it was on this side, it was always like this, so that it was open in. You never wanted this in the way to knock it out. We just had to run those drills right, left side of the quarterback 1,000 times to learn how to receive the ball properly, to take the handoff right so it wouldn't fumble. 1,000 times. That putting the arm right to receive the handoff is biblical faith. And he's pressing into the very nature of what biblical faith actually is, and how crucial that's going to be to taking the handoff of being a disciple of Jesus, but then embracing the responsibility of what he showed them of now making disciples of other people. It's going to be built on biblical faith. And if you choose to define it the way you want to define it, there's going to be a problem. And that's all what he's beginning to demonstrate here. So what we have is this sort of thing here. He's presenting a very simple paradigm, a very simple contrast of what, get this, not just the Pharisees, but what the disciples were also showing. It's the show me a sign perspective, thinking that that's faith. If you show me a sign, I'll believe. Wrong. That's not biblical faith. He's presenting and trying to highlight this different reality. Because what was that word? We stopped there for a moment in the reading. And Jesus says, clearly you guys don't remember. You don't remember. I've already done something. I've done multiple somethings, and you don't remember. And in that unpacking of that is what we start to understand what biblical faith is supposed to be and what it's often not in our lives. We often live up here in the top, functionally in our lives. Show me another sign and I will. We start doing these contracts with God. If you show me a really good one, you're going to be blown away at my faith, God, honestly. Seriously, mountains? Nothing. I'll move planets for you. If you just take care of this, right? We all have the thing. There's a big thing in our life, and what we're thinking often, we struggle in deceit and going, if that one thing can be solved by God miraculously, everything else is going to line up. I promise you, God, just take that. Just that. It's the one that just seems too hard. Take it, fix it. My faith will actually increase just like you can't believe. What we're doing is we're going, I define what biblical faith is. And what's his response to them? This is really powerful. He goes, you don't remember. You don't understand that even in that proposition, you're demonstrating a lack of faith. Trying to live up here in the top is a demonstration of a lack of faith. Worse yet, in Jesus' terms, it's actually a description of spiritual regression. We think it's spiritual progression, and it's not. It's spiritual regression. To continually negotiate with God to perform the amazing, thinking it will prompt our faith, when the whole time we're demonstrating a lack thereof. We're retreating because we're forgetting what he's already done to empower and enable us to be in the midst of that difficult thing and walk with him through it. Like the life that he has for us is one of, it's just not, everything's gone and it's all fixed and it's wonderful. He wants us to walk with him by faith wherever we are at. And that's the building of faith. And we do it on the basis of what he's done. See, the remembering is almost like a synonym for faith. Like to remember is to believe again what he's done. My gosh, I can walk with you through this. Why? Because you've been there with me in everything before. And yeah, 15, whatever it was, 20 years ago, we had a kid. And I remember like day 2, I was sitting on the steps in front of my house. I don't even know if I was awake. Again, I didn't do much work for this whole thing, but still, all right, it was difficult, so go with me. I was sitting on the steps, thinking about, is there a refund on kids? Because I don't know what I'm thinking anymore. I'm like no one told us. All grandmothers lie. They all say it's amazing. They're bundles of joy. They lie to you. They don't prepare you well for this. You're like, what in the world has happened? We don't know what to do. I remember it was like 3 a.m. and we're in there. This kid, that one right there with the hair, we're like, he won't eat. What psychotic human doesn't eat when they're hungry, or he's crying? What's going on? Her mom had come to visit. I remember it was like 2 a.m. I said, I'm going up there to get your mom. She said she was coming to help with this is the time. We need the help. She slept on our couch. It wasn't even a couch. Like put 2 of these chairs together. It was like a mini love seat. Her legs were hanging off, one head. We're like, it's DEFCON 4. We need you in here. Right? Like we don't know what we're doing. And I can't even think straight with this kid. I remember sitting on the steps going, I have no idea what, I can't handle life. Because of a human this big going wah wah. Think about it, right? I think about it now and I'm like, oh my gosh, if it was just a little wah wah this big. The wah wah's become bigger, And the kind of wah is bigger. Everything becomes bigger. But in the moment, right then, it was like, how are we going to get beyond week 1? I remember telling my wife, we just got to get to the second week. I don't even know why I thought that was like some kind of achievement. But if we can survive 2 weeks, I think we can get it. I think we can make it. Come on. And look at now. I look at it now. It's like, whoa, what happened? What happened? And I think about new seasons and new challenges. And you know what? Here's what biblical faith is to me. Look back. Right? You get what I'm saying? He just wants to come alongside and go, turn. Come here. Turn back. Everything that went south in the past, he wants to have this conversation. Was that me or was that you? That was actually you when it went south. But even when it went south, was I there? This is what God does. He's so merciful. He's so gracious. He just goes, was I there? I was there when you were pathetic on the steps. You thought just get to second week and you might survive. I was there with you, sitting right next to you, thinking, buddy, you have no idea what's next. There's so much more that's harder than this. But I was there with you going, it'll be all right. We're gonna learn through this. You're going to go wake up your mother-in-law at 2 a.m. We'll get through this. He is what God does, is the example. You don't remember. Biblical faith is akin to remembering. It's built on what he has done, not the demand for more. Not the demand for more. And in the looking back at what he has done, God does these incredible spiritual things in this relationship with him. He shores up our hearts. He steadies our shaky hands again. And he says, look, you can walk with me forward now because I was there with you then. And if we're alive at all spiritually, we can look back and realize, man, not only was he there, he intervened in ways that clearly must have been him alone. He intervened in ways I didn't even ask him to. I didn't know what to ask for, and he stepped in. If you can't see that, I'll tell you right now, by Jesus' definition, you have an ever-hardening heart. You're unable to even look back and see the great things that he has done. This is what biblical faith is. I didn't say it was easy. I didn't begin this with, here's the easy way. It's not the easy way, but it is what biblical faith is built on. And Jesus says, that's how I shore you up for the present and where we're going, is I help you look back and go, take a breath, let's look back. Can I be trusted? Yes, I can. Now let's go. Oh, but I just want him to fix this one, and I promise you I can do that for him out there. He's even merciful in that. He'll let you keep asking and floundering in that process. Eventually, he will get through to you in your hardened heart. It's just often through a very difficult set of circumstances for us to see. This is the paradigm. We want spiritual progression. Then we've got to proceed forward with him in biblical faith. Okay, let's go. Good grief. And they came to Bethsaida. And some people brought to him a blind man and begged him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. Notice. Little clues in this. It's a little different. This isn't in front of everybody. Led him out of the village. And when he had spit on his eyes, okay, this got weird, and laid his hands on him, he asked him, do you see anything? And he looked up and said, I see people, but they look like trees. I thought that my whole life. No, I'm just kidding. They look like trees walking. Wow. Then Jesus laid his hands on his eyes again, and he opened his eyes. His sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. And he sent him to his home, saying, do not even enter the village. There's a whole lot of weird in here, but it's actually not that weird. It's actually not that weird. I think Jesus is demonstrating a couple of important things here. He had just had a very unique interaction of demanding public signs to prove who he was. In this situation, he goes to an individual. What does he specifically do? You come with me. We're going over here. Everyone's not watching. It's you and me. Why? Because I'm going to do something with you and to you. It's all for the purpose of you believing in me. This is not to wow the crowd. That's not working. They're not responding. But to you, the individual, come with me out of the village. It's pure speculation on my part. My assumption is there are some disciples with him as well, although it's not expressly stated that way. My guess is, knowing how Peter was, he's probably like, where are you going? What's happening with this blind guy? I want to see what's happening. I'm guessing a few of them might have followed, but I can't say that definitively. But check out what he does. Anyone weirded out by the spitting on the eyes? That's messed up, isn't it? Is it messed up, though, to a blind guy? No, think about it. Is it messed up to a blind guy? What communicates the personal touch of Jesus to a blind man? Can that blind man sense his proximity? Maybe, like just by his voice. What communicates the personal touch of Jesus to this individual man's issue? Spitting on the eyes would. Touching him. Remember there were some, they just touched the hem of the robe? But what does Jesus do? He touches him. This is between you and me. This is between you and me. I'm looking to your need, your blindness. I'm touching you. I'm not touching everybody. I'm not yelling out. It's just me and you. It's one of the only times anything remotely like this happens. Odd sort of situation. I think he's demonstrating something by how he's doing it. The personal nature of this with this individual in a way that the blind man would very much sense and experience. Jesus is talking with him. But now we've got another problem, correct? He spits, and the guy's like, I see, but there are walking trees. He fell into the Lord of the Rings. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Okay, so he's like, I see, but they look like walking trees. And then Jesus does it again. Okay, does anyone sense a problem here? What's your first thought? What's your first thought at that? Go ahead. It didn't take. What in the world? He did it a second. He's like, oh man, stink, the saliva thing. I shouldn't have done it. And I went on a whim and gosh, Father, I should have listened. Is that what's happening? No, that's not what's happening. There's a couple options. Option one is it didn't take. Jesus, correct? I mean, we have to look at the options. Option one, it didn't work first time. Option two is the man did not believe that Jesus could fully heal him. In this very personal interaction, the man didn't believe. There was a sense that he could probably do something, but was he convinced that Jesus could do it? And why might this be the case? Because this poor man never saw any of the other miracles. He couldn't see them. He just heard. And his faith was not fully convinced that Jesus could do this. But it was to a measure that it's like it starts to happen. And I think Jesus is interacting with him sensing, you are seeing, aren't you? Are you convinced now that I can do it? And he does it again, and he's healed. Very personal, very specific. And it's aligned with the principle that he's trying to teach here. That faith is confidence in what God has done, not the demand for more. Okay, check it out. He goes on. Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi. I will show you that in just a moment. And on the way, he asked his disciples, who do people say that I am? And they told him, John the Baptist, others say Elijah, others say one of the prophets. And he asked them, but who do you say that I am? This is one of the coolest interactions in the Bible. And Peter answered him. And all the other disciples were like, yes, because if he's wrong, it's his fault. But Peter's like, I got it. You are the Christ, which is akin to the Messiah, the marked one, the chosen one. That's who you are. And he strictly charged them to tell no one about him. What? If we follow the story, this begins the outward declaration by Peter, not even Jesus himself, about who he is. So there's a shift here. He doesn't say you're wrong. By his response to Peter, he's saying you're exactly right, but just not yet. There's more work to be done. By declaring that outrightly and out loud before the wrong people could radically change the timeline even of his death. He says, you're onto something, but shh. Let's look at it a little bit more. Okay, first off, this is where it's at. I don't know if you can see that, but you see where Galilee is? You see the Sea of Galilee? That's where we've been. This is the same map. We're not changing anything. But we've moved up into here. So we moved up into northeastern Israel. And if you can see in the big circle at the top, there's a town in there, and that's Caesarea Philippi. Okay, so that's where it's at. there's two Caesareas, that's why it has the name. There's one on the coast, they called it Caesarea Maritima, or by the sea. And then there's this Caesarea Philippi, that's why it has two names, to distinguish it between the two. So if you actually go due west, it's a little further south than Tyre there, but there is another Caesarea that's on the coast. So he's up here in this general area, okay? And I want to just show you a little quick video clip of where he's at, or in the very close proximity where he's at when this interaction takes place, because there's something really cool going on here, what Jesus is demonstrating, all about this issue of faith. Okay, check this out. So this is the location in Caesarea Philippi. The videographer is jumpy at points. I'd like to blame someone else, but it was me. But, okay, this is on the side of the mountain at the city center of Caesarea Philippi. So if you actually come, the spring feeds out just below this, and it's where most of the city was built around. You just look up at the side, and there's this here. Now, if you can see the side of the mountain, you'll notice there's ruins right there next to it, okay? As if something was built right there. And the archaeological evidence proves clearly that that's the case. You can actually see it. It's all been dated to this time, the time of Christ. More specifically, a more artistic rendering of that specific location is this. So there was a series of two temples, and this little area of, well, yeah, it was an area of worship here on the right. It looks like kind of like a little amphitheater. It wasn't. It was where sacrifices were done and other kinds of, the worst kinds of worship you could imagine to the gods, to false gods, took place there, including in all these. Specifically, the one to the left is the temple of Pam, the god Pam, false god Pam. Now, interestingly enough, that's the hole where the temple of Pam was built. So if you can see how that one is built back into the hole in the mountain, this is the hole that's still there. Now, I don't have like a pointer or anything, but if you look in the hole, there's one little outcropping there. It's kind of white, standing by itself. I don't know if you can see it. There's like a little, it looks like a white rock kind of in the middle, standing by itself. It was open in the back of the temple, and that's where the statue of Pam sat on top of that, right there. And here's where this gets really interesting, okay? So just hold on to this a second. But that right there, that specific area was called the gates of hell. And Pam had power over the gates of hell. The worship of Pam prevented evil from hell from coming out of the gates of hell and hurting the people. So worshiping Pam, Pam had the power standing there at the gates of hell. If you appeased Pam, it would stop the gates of hell from coming and hurting you in whatever way. So there's seasonal worship for crops and all that, but all of it was to stop the forces of hell from coming out in. And this is Caesarea Philippi. This is right where it's at. This is where Jesus is walking with his disciples now, and most likely, they're right here. How do we know that? Check out Matthew 16, the parallel passage to this. Same one. We're just picking up right where Simon Peter replies, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Now check it out. Matthew gives us more detail to what transpired in that conversation. Jesus said, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." There is a profoundly more impactful statement that Jesus makes to Peter here. But it's all keyed on this. Look what he says. "The gates of hell will not prevail against what I'm going to build in and among you as the church." The gates of hell. You know where I think they were? I think they were right there at the gates of hell. And he's saying, this thing that they've built to stop the advance of that, oh no, it's what I'm going to build in the church that's going to stop the advance of that. This is all happening in Caesarea Philippi. This is all happening on the heels of these interactions where Jesus is trying to challenge them to what? Believe in what he has said and what he has demonstrated. Not knowing everything, but we go on, we don't demand something of him. We're called to believe in what he has declared and said, right? That's what he's trying to get through to them. Why is that such a big point that he's trying to make? Because he's going to walk them up the road to the gates of hell, where the ancient world believed that the worship of these false gods would somehow prevent the advances of Satan and evil in the world, and he was going to declare to them a truth that would set the course for the next hundreds, if not thousands of years of how he is going to fight the advances of hell on earth. And it was going to be through people. Namely these jokers who were just in the boat going, 1 baguette, 12 people. I'm very hungry. How is this Jesus going to accomplish this problem I have? Do you see why he wanted to make a big deal out of that? You see why he wanted to teach that? Because he was setting them up in his discipleship of them to lead them to a place to declare a truth about their future and the future of all generations of believers after them that is so profound, but it will be dependent on faith in what he said. Let's just look at it. We got a minute. Let's make some sense of it first. Now, grammatically, this rock here, because Jesus says here, what you said, now check out what he said. Let's unpack it accurately. Because this is a passage where much false theology has come out. This is the central passage for the belief in papal authority in the Roman Catholic Church. Believing that a man is what the church is built on, and the succession of authority given out from that man is how the church is formed and built. Because they ascribe the rock here to Peter, that he was the rock. Look at the language, which hasn't been done for a long time, specifically among them. He says to them, I'm talking to you about what you just revealed. Blessed are you because you revealed something. You spoke something that is more powerful and significant than you could ever know. Look what he's doing. He's actually saying, it wasn't you at all, Peter. You're not magnificent in this. You're blessed in this because my Father chose to reveal something to you to speak out about me. Because what did Peter say? Peter didn't go, I got an idea. I'm going to be the biggest, most important dude in your church. Bless that, Jesus. That's not what Peter said. The statement Peter made was, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. You are the centerpiece. You are the point of the gravitational pull of all spiritual truth. It's you. You're the marked one. I'm not at all. It is all you. And Jesus says, you could have never come up with that on your own. That which you revealed came from the Father. And it is on that rock that I will build my church. Not only is that linguistically and in the flow, it's accurate to what Jesus was highlighting. Jesus actually, in the original language, intentionally uses two different forms of the word rock to distinguish it, because Peter's name means rock, right? He intentionally uses both a masculine and a feminine here to show that he's not indicating that Peter is indeed the foundation of the church, or is Peter the rock. Instead of using the name Peter, Petros, he uses Petra, the Christian music rock band from the 80s and 90s. No, that's not it. But that's where they got their name. He's specifically using it because, and that's why in English, the only way we can designate that is we put this in there. We have to say this because there's something that's saying this rock, he's talking about something different there. It's not you, it's on this rock of what you said that I will build my church. That's the truth. Peter's declaration is the rock. Peter's not the rock. This truth is what will cause it to prevail against the gates of hell. Peter will not prevent the advancement of the gates of hell. No. Neither will you, neither will anyone else who assumes authority from him. It is a gross misrepresentation of what Peter said, what Peter thought, and what Jesus actually communicated to him. It's not the case. I would like you to note this. The gates of hell are described here as the ramparts of defense of the kingdom of darkness. It's a defensive statement, the gates of hell. In that ancient world, those gates were those gates were used to prevent the advancement of something. So Jesus has this interesting way of talking about who this is, the church, and what it's going to be. And I want you to think about this. They were worshiping Pam, thinking Pam was preventing the advancement of evil into the world. Jesus flips it on its side and says, no, those gates of hell will not prevail against the church. Guess who's on offense? The church. Those defensive measures of hell will not be able to sustain the advancement of the church. That's what Jesus is saying. He's not talking about a fundamentally defensive posture in the world of darkness. He's not saying that it will not come out into the world. He's not saying that here. He's not saying because the church exists, then evil will not go anywhere in the world. That's not what he's saying. He's saying this new thing that I'm doing, of which, Peter, you alluded to, you had no idea what you were talking about. That only the Father did that, but that is a foundation for a completely new kind of thing in the world called the church, of which those gates of hell will not be able to stop its advance there. It will not be able to stop it. Holy smokes. We sit back in fear of the world? No, the thing we're supposed to believe in here is we're the one advancing towards the gates of hell. Because we have the marching orders of the one who said, I am the chosen one, and I am the foundation of this new thing built in and out of me that nothing can stop its advance. We're the advancing army. We've got the weapons that they cannot defend against. That's the picture he's trying to paint here. The church that he's talking about, here's your two words. It builds. I will build my church. It's something that is to be built, and it's something that is to battle, because it advances against the gates of hell. It is not something that is stagnant and it falls back in fear and trembling. It builds and it battles. Do you see why he's trying to get through this faith thing? In our lives, we live, oftentimes we live seasons, if not lifetimes, of fear and falling back at the sign of anything evil in the world, not believing that we are the church that builds and battles, because our foundation, who is Jesus Christ, cannot be stopped. He cannot be thwarted. And he's chosen to do that through this thing called the church that builds and battles. Yeah, let me just add this to you, though. Is Peter the foundation, the rock that the church is built on? No, but it does say these things. It does say that the gates of hell will not prevail against this church thing. And he does say to Peter, we can't deny this, I will give you the keys that will both bind and loose. What does he mean by that? Oh, we're out of time. Got to go. No, just kidding. What does he mean by that? What does he mean by that? Check this out. It's a fascinating thing that he's doing here. Because Peter chose to believe that which the Father revealed to him, and he declared this truth that would be the foundation for everything for a millennia to come after this of the church. He entrusts something very specific to Peter. He entrusts this thing that he calls the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. He was entrusted. Peter was. Yes, Peter alone. Not everyone who would come after him claiming his name, Peter alone, for a very specific time in the history of the establishment of the church, demonstrates the authority to use these keys to bind and loose this new thing that is going to be coming out on the earth. Up until this point, there's no church. This idea of the church, Jews, Gentiles, all in one family, Jesus Christ being the head, there is nothing like that ever in human history. Who would be the one to unleash, to loose that on the earth, to bind the truth of the gospel for all people in heaven and on earth? He was going to firstly do this through Peter. Think about this. Who's the first one to en masse communicate the gospel to the Jews? Acts chapter 2, who did the talking? It was Peter. And who was primarily there? Jews from all over, right? Go read the account in Acts 2. It's Jews had come together. Peter declares, and what happens? All these Jews hear this incredible gospel. They're saved in the gospel as part of the church, and they take the church out to all the different places that they've been. Peter looses it on earth. Acts chapter 8. Who's the one who communicates the gospel first to the Samaritans? Peter. I know we say Paul is the apostle to the Gentiles. He was. But Peter was the first guy to the Samaritans. And in Acts chapter 10, remember who that guy was that Peter shared the gospel to and his whole family was saved? Cornelius, the first Gentile. Oddly enough, not in Caesarea Philippi, but in Caesarea Maritima. He's there with Cornelius, communicates the gospel, and his whole family believes. And now the church has broken into the world of the Gentiles, validating what Jesus said about Peter right here. And I believe he was doing it as a demonstration of the faith of Peter and what the Father had revealed to him. He's like, I don't even know what this all means, but you are the Christ. It's on you. You're the one. And Jesus says, because of that faith, I'm going to entrust you with the demonstration of this new church to Jew, to the Samaritan, to the Gentile. It's all going to go out through you first. And that's exactly what happened in human history. Oddly enough, isn't that what the Great Commission was? Taking the gospel to Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost. Peter was the one who took it to Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost. He was the first one. Interesting thing about faith. When we believe God, does he entrust us with things? Do you realize that when we look back and remember and believe what God has done, willing to trust him into where we're now and where we're going, he actually is wanting to entrust things to us. He's not just doing like a test in school to see what you know. He's wanting to build a faith in you that he will entrust you with great things with him and for him. That's what he's about. Pretty cool. This happened in the second year. And I think he's connecting beyond just biblical faith, but the kind of service for and with him that comes out of biblical faith. All right, so let's wrap her up. Disciples are always being challenged to grow in their relationship with God. Think about this in the deepest sense of the definition of these words. This is a very simple statement, but think about what he just showed. The disciples are always being challenged to grow in their relationship with God through confidence in him. Not testing him for what you want out of him. Confidence in him. Embracing the gospel stewardship that our faith brings. As we grow in confidence in him, he gives us a stewardship of the gospel. And it's for the purpose of taking that gospel out to where we haven't been yet. That's the point, right? That's what he's trying to do. But don't misunderstand. If there's a lack of confidence or a hardening of heart, testing him, not looking back, not believing in who he is and what he's done, don't think a stewardship with the gospel is going to come to those who show a lack of faith in him and what he's done. It's not going to happen. But no matter where you are on your journey right now, get this, you don't have to be Peter, Paul, wherever you're at. Today, you can look back at what he's done. Believe and trust him for where you're at right now and where the next step might be. But that where I'm at now and where I'm going is going to be built on your faith in him. It ramps up even more when we think about making disciples, because we've got to help other people. This isn't just our lesson now. How do we help teach and exhort others to remember and trust God for who he is and what he's done as they face difficulties? That was the easiest sentence in my life to write. Easy. It didn't cost me anything to write that sentence. I'm telling you right now, to do that in people's lives in difficulty, it is not, it's like a battle sometimes to come alongside those who, my circumstance right now, I can't see where this goes. This is everyone's posture. I don't see where this is going. And to try to come alongside and go, God's wanting to start here first and help you see what he's done in your life. He wants you to trust him. Trust him and how he brought you here. That is extremely difficult to do with other people. Emotions sometimes rise so much higher than faith. But make no mistake about it. Everyone here, you put your hand up, you want to be a disciple maker? I'm all with you. This is what he's asking us to do in people's lives. And it's really hard. And sometimes it takes months, years to feel like we're making any progress. It's hard. Do not stop doing that which you've been called to do. God has a profound life for us, in step with him, if we will remember what he has done and entrust ourselves to the opportunities that he walks us into. Man, it's a profound life. But it is available to those who will believe him. It's right there for every single one of us to grab. Okay, next week, Mark 8:31 to 9:29. God, thank you for this passage. Man, I thank you for these words. Thank you for these examples. The story. I guess I just pray for us, God, that we would choose to reflect on who you are and what you've done. That we would make that choice. We would be able to look beyond what we feel and what we're experiencing in any moment of our lives, enough to turn our gaze to you and reflect on what you've done. Allow you to kind of walk us through that remembering. We just want to thank you for that. We want you to continue to teach us. Yeah, we need that so much, God. I pray we would not be so enamored with the newest, coolest thing, the newest, coolest book or message or experience for you, but the simplicity of walking with you in faith. Man, we need to be really, really enamored with that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Good morning, guys. We're going to sing some truth that we just heard about. And the first song that we're going to sing is a newer song by Chris Tomlin. It's called Always. And I'll just read some of the words in the verse. But I believe you gave sight to the blind. I believe that the dead came to life. I believe that there's wonders and signs and that you're still the same. So we're singing about Jesus. And then as we get into the chorus, it's kind of like, because I believe those things, this is what I'm going to do. So the chorus goes, I will tell of your wonders, sing of your grace, the God of creation who knows me by name. The Lord is faithful yesterday, now and always. I just wanted to read those, and then as we're singing them, let's be reflecting on what we're singing. And it's a really easy song to sing along to, so I hope you'll catch on.
Signs, and you're still the same. bow down and praise. The Lord is faithful, yesterday, now, and always.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for singing that with us, guys. Yeah, and I just pray, and I think that as we sing these songs, I just hope that they reflect in your mind throughout the week. Yeah, and listen to the recordings of them as well, just to be reminded of this truth as you continue on throughout the week. So the next song we're going to sing is In Christ Alone. It's an oldie, but a goodie. Yeah. In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground. Firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace. When fears are stilled, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all. Here in the love of Christ I stand. Whoa, 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 whoa. In Christ alone, who took on flesh, fullness of God in helpless babe. This gift of love and righteousness, scorned by the ones he came to save. Till on that cross as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied. For every sin on him was laid. Here in the death of Christ I live. Oh,
There in the ground, his body lay, light of the world by darkness slain, then bursting forth in glorious day, up from the grave he rose again, and as he stands in victory, since curse has lost its grip on me. For I am his, and he is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. Oh, no guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hands till he returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I'll stand. Oh, This next song we're going to do is Hymn of Heaven. I did it the last time I led, but it just, it sets our mind on the thing that is to come, and just kind of thinking even in all the hard struggles and the hard life that we face, trying to live for God here and now, that there is this reality to come of when we will be with him and we will be in heaven, and everybody, all believers will be there just praising God together. Yeah. And how I long to breathe the air of heaven, where pain is gone and mercy fills the streets, to look upon
join the resurrection and stand beside the heroes of the faith. With one voice, 1,000 generations sing, worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Forever he shall reign. So let it be today. We shout the hymn of heaven with angels and the saints. We raise a mighty roar. Glory to our God, who gave us life beyond the grave. Holy, holy is the Lord. Holy, holy is the Lord. Holy, holy is the Lord.
Yeah, God, we look forward to that day. When we will all stand before you, singing your name and your praise, all of us together. And you just think of like, we maybe have 100 people here singing, and just how awesome it is to hear us 100 people. But you think of all believers that existed singing your praise together, and God, that will be a glorious, magnificent thing, and we look forward to that day. We have another old song. It's an old hymn that Carrie's going to talk about.
Well, I grew up singing the old hymns, and I love them. So this is a hymn. It was written in the 1700s, and some of the old hymns, because they're so old, I guess, the language and the way they're written seem kind of funny. But a lot of them have super good words. They're so deep and theologically sound. So this is an old one. It's All Hail the Power of Jesus' Name. I would imagine that most of you maybe know this. But Josiah's we're kind of gonna do it upbeat, and it'll be fun. But as you guys, I'm sure we're all gonna be reading the words because we don't have them all memorized. But as we read them, try to think about what they're saying and not just like trying to read them, but really think about what they're saying. So we are going to together praise the name of Jesus, the Christ, the Son of the living God, together. All hail the power of Jesus' name, let angels prostrate fall. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown him Lord of all. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown him Lord of all. Ye chosen seed of Israel's race, ye ransomed from the fall. Hail him who saves you by his grace, and crown him Lord of all. Hail him who saves you by his grace, and crown him Lord of all. Let every kindred, every tribe on this terrace
you so much for just who you are. And God, yeah, thank you for Lane and his teaching, and yeah, just teaching about your word and who you are. And God, I just pray, yeah, just as Lane was talking about, that biblical faith is one of remembering of what you have already done, and that we move forward based off of, what you've already provided for us. So God, I pray for all of us as we, leave here, that we would reflect on our own lives and how you have provided for us. And God, just thinking the biggest thing you've done is saved us from hell. And just sending Jesus to die on the cross for us. And God, we will praise Jesus the rest of our days because of that. And I just pray that we continue to remember that as we live life. Amen. All right, that's all we got for you guys then. So